Welcome, everyone, to episode 143 of Rangers Ed, presented by Lucarelli Law. If you're in Florida and need a lawyer, call Lucarelli Law and tell them the boys at Rangers Ed sent you. This is your host, Cousin Ed. I'm here in Florida, Little Ed, in who knows where in the world is Little Ed? San Diego should be the new thing. Different hotel room every episode. What's up, buddy?
Kenilworth, New Jersey today. So,
all right,
doing a little Jersey, Pennsylvania loop this week. And just trucking along, covering the East Coast.
Yeah, nice. And we got Coach Ed crinkling papers up while you're talking over there. What's up, Coach? Did you make it?
What's going on?
Did you make it? You threw it. Did it go in?
No, I missed.
That was another early episode of some Coach Ed always going through his notes.
Yeah, crinkling his notes, eating out of a ceramic bowl. There was a lot of those. I feel like we just stopped after a while. We just live with them now at this point. But so look, a lot to talk about. Obviously, Rangers had breakup day on Monday. A lot of quotes came out of the locker room. Stanley Cup playoffs started. We got our brackets in. I saw we had about at least 20 brackets in the group, which is pretty good.
Cool.
So it's pretty exciting stuff that you put together there for a giveaway. I don't think you have it with you, but why don't you tell the fans, the listeners, what they're going to get if they win the bracket and what they missed out on if they didn't sign up.
Yeah, grand prize is going to be the Sam Rosenwood plaque. It's a 7x10 laser cut, whatever you want to call it, wood jersey plaque. Kind of the one if you saw the MSG commercial we've been talking about. We're going to go to the grand prize with that. And then I figured the second and third prize, we could just do some merch, some Rangers Ed t-shirts, koozies. We got a bunch of stuff we can throw a little giveaway basket for. So,
do we have any Lundqvist banners left?
we have a shit ton of those.
We left the garden. We left the garden with a garbage bag full of them. So
yeah, we got a shit ton of those somewhere. So we'll definitely do that. And if PJ can get us the total number, I think when I did it or looked at it this morning, it was at like 22 or 23.
Yeah.
So maybe we got some last minute additions because I know the NHL closed them down today at 6:30 or something like that. That's pretty exciting. Got a lot more entries than we did last year. And if you didn't get your bracket in on time, I'm sorry. And better luck next year.
You got a chance.
25, by the way. Sorry, guys.
25. All right, cool. So 25 people.
Solid.
Listen. If you win, you got a chance to own a piece of merch that Sam Rosen puts next to his Hall of Fame plaque and his awards in his living room right there for the video. So you and Sam will share a piece of memorabilia, which is pretty cool. All right, let's just jump right into it so we can be long in the tooth. Oh, all right. Ed Little Ed. So you, Sam Rosen,
got mine signed by Sam. So
nice.
The free giveaway is not going to be signed, but maybe I can engrave his signature in it. That's an idea.
You could laser it. Laser.
Emboss it on a plate.
That's an idea. Maybe I could scan it with my phone or something.
Two movie quotes back to back. All right. Let's jump into the jersey profiles sponsored by Blue Line Blue Shirts. Episode 143, jersey number 43, Martin Biron. We played 4 seasons with the Rangers, 22, 15, and 3, 909, 2.53, and 2 shutouts. Isn't he, remind me, didn't he just retire mid-season after getting lit up with the Rangers? Or am I mixing him up with somebody else? PJ would know the answer to that. I'm pretty sure it was Biron.
Yes.
Yeah.
I put it on there.
You did?
On 10/20/13, the Rangers put him on waivers, and he retired. And a lot of people will remember he played against the Sharks in San Jose. Hurdle put up 4 goals against them, including one through the legs, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, then he said, okay, I had enough. Funny, a player was put on waivers mid-season, and nothing happened. The team locker room didn't fall apart. It's interesting. Something to talk about. But anyway, Little Ed, you were saying that you listen to him a lot on NHL radio on Sirius. I don't listen to it often. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, he joins the show at like 4 or 5 o'clock, I think. He sticks around for almost a full hour, and I think he's a very knowledgeable analyst. He sees the game from both sides of the puck very well, and his accent is always enjoyable to listen to, that French-Canadian accent he's got going on. So, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to mention that he's probably a better analyst than he was a goalie. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's funny. It seems like these backup goalies become pretty good analysts. Valaket, Biron, right?
They watch the game. They're involved. They don't have they have a lot of time to they have a lot of time to watch and focus on, I guess, like the actual game than to focus on their own game.
Whenever whenever I get to listen to him here and there, he always is positive about the Rangers. I got to say that he always he doesn't have a grudge against them or anything. Not like Ray Ferraro. He's always not pumping them up, but he's honest about the situation. He gives good analysis of it.
I hate listening to Ferraro. They did him dirty though. I feel like Biron, I don't know if they did him dirty. See, I think I don't remember him being placed on waivers. I remember him just retiring, but yeah, I don't know. He seems pretty level on NHL Network when he pops in there. So, kudos to him for finding that career after his NHL career ended. Little Ed fun fact. It's up there on the board. I love how you put it in like the fine print. So it's always in like the fine print on the thing. Little Ed fun fact. Go ahead. It's your fun fact. So
he debuted as the fourth youngest goalie to start a game in NHL history, and it was like an emergency call-up situation. So I guess like the starting goalie and the backup goalie got hurt or got sick or whatever. So like he had no idea he was going to play. He came in and started his first game.
Who did he start with? Buffalo?
Called up.
Yeah, Buffalo. Yeah.
I think he went back down after that briefly back to the minors, but then he came back.
It reminds me of Mackenzie Skapski when he got thrust into a game at the Rangers randomly because of injuries. I think the same thing happened to him, but he was obviously, I think he was older than Biron was when he debuted, but he played, and that was like the end of his career. He played that one game. I think did he have a shutout in that game?
I think I was at that. Yeah, I think I was.
Why am I remembering all this random stuff today? I don't know. Brains are interesting. Anyway, yeah, that's an interesting fact. Biron, pretty impressive. Who's the youngest though? That's a good question. Was it Tom Barrasso? I think Tom Barrasso.
Right. I feel like didn't we learn that at the Hall of Fame this year or last year?
Yeah, he debuted at 18. They said, right, so he's got to be up there. Interesting. Anyway, all right. So big news, obviously, before breakup day, before Easter Sunday. The New Rangers fired head coach Peter Laviolette and assistant coach Phil Housley, who coached the defense. Dan Muse and Michael Pekka were not fired. I guess whoever the next coach is, they'll have to interview with that coach to see if they're going to be retained. Maybe one of them will be the next coach. I'm not really sure. Before we get into our coach's corner, just want to get your guys' thoughts on the firing of Laviolette and Housley. And, what do you think it was necessary? You think it's a good move, bad move? Just generally where you at with it, Little Ed? Why don't you start?
Seems like the defense was I touched on it last episode. I think that should be the main focus moving forward even though they always let up a lot of shots and stuff, last year they played a pretty well, pretty good structured team defensively. For whatever reason this year, it just wasn't there. So I think starting out from the net out, like we always talk about and what we emphasized last week, is very important. So I think that's the right move. And we always liked Pekka. I think when he came in, the face-off percentage was always when he came in, it became really high, and then it stayed that way. So I think giving him a shot's the right move, and then clearing out, obviously, I guess Laviolette, and the big problem is defense, in my opinion. Coach.
You're
You're
muted, Ed.
because
Yeah, it's all good. I was just saying, Coach, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I got mixed emotions about it. I've been talking about it all year. I don't think it should be on the coach. I mean, are they firing Rick Tocchet? They went from the top team in the league to not making the playoffs also. You know, the coach isn't allowed to have a bad year. The team isn't allowed to have a bad year with the Rangers, and they get fired the second year. This is the third time. The third time in the last 6. Did Quinn make a third year, or was he done in the second? I forget.
I think he had 3.
Well, one was the COVID year, I think, right?
Yeah, he had 3. He did 1920, 2019, 20, 2021. No, I think he had 2. 2.
Two
I
and a
mean,
half,
correct me.
because
Did he get 3 years?
COVID.
2.5. Yeah, 2.5.
Three. You're
maybe.
forgetting 18-19. That's when he came in after.
18-19.
And then
Well-
two shortened years because of COVID. Really.
Right.
The reality of it is, though, that you're an advocate of bringing in a guy that can deal with the young players. He came from BU, right? So he had the
did.
reputation of dealing with young players, and then they get rid of him. They want to bring in the veteran guy. They bring in Gallant because the team wasn't responding physically and whatever the case was at the time. And then they go to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then they fire him the next year. It's just a carousel, which I think is kind of unfair. Maybe there were some inner things that happened that weren't his fault, and to me, it's mostly on the players. The defensive structure, even at the end of last year against Florida, we saw how they've had Panthers dominated the offensive zone. They needed to change a little bit, but they didn't make any adjustments. So maybe that was fair. I don't know, but I don't know. I have that mixed emotion that they don't give these guys enough of time or a chance to move forward.
Well, I definitely agree with that. I never said I agree with the move. I just think if they identified the problem with defense, for sure. But I agree with that. Whereas like they gotta hire a coach that's gonna kind of like, I know they want like immediate success, but like I don't know. That's just not really the formula. It's worked well to make it to the Eastern Conference Final, but to get over that hump, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I agree generally with that principle that it's better to have longevity. I look at the Rangers coaching from 2004 until David Quinn was hired in 2018. They had 3 coaches in that period, right? Which is an average of almost 5 years per coach. They had Tom Rennie, John Tortorella, and Alain Vigneault. And they had a lot of success in those years. And there's something to be said about stability in sports leading to long-term success, right? Everybody knows about hiring a coach, getting a jolt. I think it happened with Gallant. It happened with Laviolette. Both those teams were good in their first year. And then there is something about this group that just shuts down on a coach almost immediately after that initial success is had. And
I think
I can't say I can't say I disagree with firing Laviolette, though. I mean, I wasn't really happy with the way he played the kids down the stretch. I think just getting out of that is probably the right move. I am an advocate of coaches that play kids. I didn't hate the David Quinn signing when they hired him, but he didn't really do a good job of playing the kids. He played to keep his job. He played to win now during a rebuild. I think he did a lot of damage to the rebuild, honestly. So a coach who actually would commit to that,
that's part of the
I would be happy.
GM and the organization's fault, not to cut you off.
Oh yeah, I'm assuming they're on the same page, right? I mean, these guys got to work in tandem.
What I mean is, like, if
we
they
don't know.
said, like, listen, like, we're hiring you now, it's okay, we're expecting to win in 6 years, then he doesn't
Right.
have to say, like, all right, I have to worry about my job. Like, so clearly they didn't say that. Otherwise, he would have played whoever that he, you know what I mean? Like, I think it boils down to like Coach Ed said, it's the players. I agree with that, but I think it's really the organization where, like, obviously, like, we always look at these coaches like Coop, Bednar. The organization kind of like grooms them, and Coach Ed always said this too. Like, the players should be knowing the system when they come up through the AHL, the ECHL, whatever, blah, 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 that they know how they're going to play once they get to the NHL.
Well, in order to do that, you need stability. Yeah.
Right.
You need stability to do that.
They missed out on the opportunity with Knobloch. Maybe, like I said, if they said to Quinn, let's grow with, like, whatever, grow with so and so, grow with this player. Like we'll sign Panera and then like trade for Mika, whatever. Mika's first, but you know what I'm saying? Like you have to kind of grow with those players too. The core just can't just have a new coach every 2 years. It's never going to work.
If I
So you
recall,
have
when
to
they
build
hired
that trust.
Laviolette,
It takes more than a year or two to build that trust.
when they hired Laviolette, if I recall correctly, Knobloch was an option. He was not in Edmonton yet,
No,
and
he
they
wasn't.
chose to hire Laviolette over Knobloch. That to me is a blunder. You're grooming this guy. You got to know, like at some point. I'm not saying you need a young coach. Like I always want young players. Like I don't necessarily care if the coach is young, but you need a fresh face. You need a different perspective than one of a guy who's coached like 5 other teams. Been coaching for 25 years. Like these guys get tuned out, especially by the younger players, in my opinion. So,
Well, I think like a guy like Carberry and like Montgomery, that's a good middle ground. They're
yeah,
new
or
enough
like
in the
Jeff
league, but they're
Halpern,
weathered. They have the experience.
right? Like a Jeff Halpern in Tampa under Cooper.
I don't trust a coach coming
I
out of
love that.
college like Quinn or even Carlisle. It's
Right.
coaching a completely different game. Just because he won World Juniors with Team USA, it's coaching a completely different game.
It is different. I agree. I'm not saying I'm against
So
Carl.
what do you say about
as a
that?
coach?
Well, first of all, Carberry coached at the Hershey level and won a bunch of accolades at Hershey, if I recall.
No, I'm saying he's a good example. He's a good middle
Oh.
ground. He's earned it.
Yeah.
Whereas like Carlisle, the college coach, I wouldn't
Carl,
trust that
I think it
philosophy.
is.
Carl, whatever. I wouldn't trust that philosophy or that style of coaching.
Yeah, I don't know if they're
level.
necessarily ready to come in at the pro level. It's a big difference, a big adjustment. Just like in football, they go through those growing pains too. It's not always a jump from high-level college to the pros. It's different. It's a different dynamic. The players have
It's
different
going
egos.
from coaching kids to coaching like adults and men and veterans. You know, it's a completely different lifestyle or whatever, coaching style. PJ, what do you got?
Yeah.
I wanted to pose a question to the group about Laviolette. I think we all, whether or not we agreed or not that it was fully his fault, I don't think it was. He was bound to get fired at the end of this year. I think we all knew it in December. My question to everyone is, do you think they should have cut the cord earlier and then gave Peck and or Muse a look, see what you got, and then reassess now?
I mean, that's definitely an interesting take. I mean, in hindsight, that sounds great.
If that was in Drury's mind that they were definitely going to fire him at the end of the year, then he should have did it after 4 Nations and started someone fresh. I do agree with that assessment.
Yeah.
I'd say it's easy to say that now. I mean, that they missed the playoffs because, at the time the Rangers had that stretch. There was still plenty of time for this team, and frankly, if you look at how the team finished, they missed the playoffs by 6 points, right? Like that's 4 games. So if 4 of those games go differently, the Rangers make the playoffs. So, and then maybe Laviolette doesn't get fired. So I think it's easy to say now, like, oh, it would have been nice to get 40 games of Pekka as the head coach to see if he's a good hire. But I think at the time, they got JT Miller, they moved some guys out. They still felt like there was time left in the season, and they didn't want to give the players another scalp of a coach right away. I can't say I blame them for letting him finish the season, honestly.
Guys, do you really think that would work? It would be like Mike Keenan and Neil Smith, because there's no way I would listen to what Cousin Eddie has to say about developing the young players.
Yeah, can you imagine a system where I'm acquiring players and Coach Ed has to deploy them? It would be a disaster. It would be a disaster. He'd have all these guys on the 4th line playing 6 minutes a night. I'd be like, "What are you doing?"
What did Tortorella say? I didn't sign up for this or whatever.
I invested a 1st-round pick in this guy. You're scratching him. Like, come on, dude. You're making me look bad. Play him. It would be a constant power struggle. And then Little Ed be over there playing the middle, like, he's not working hard in practice.
Yeah. Question: is Paul Maurice a good coach?
Oh, definitely Paul Maurice is a good coach. Yeah, he's been a good coach for a while. So
he's the 3rd winningest coach in NHL history.
I think Chris's point is, why not a retread? Like Paul Maurice never won a cup. He finally won with Florida. How many organizations did he go through? That's probably where he's going with that because he likes to set us up. So I'm assuming that's the direction he's going in. look, I'm not saying that can't happen, but this team just needs a fresh identity. They need to hire a coach that's going to give them a fresh identity, and they need to acquire players that fit that identity. They can't just be like, this is my opinion. Coach will disagree, little Ed's going to disagree, but I think just being like, oh, they're weak, like let's hire Torts, like that's not going to work. What's going to happen? He's just going to scratch everyone. There's going to be a blowout. You see the kind of quotes we're getting on breakup day, which we're going to talk about in a minute. There needs to be an identity for this team. The GM and the owner have to sit down and say, what kind of team do we want? They need to hire a coach that fits that, and they need to move the players out that don't fit it. I don't care if the guy's been coaching 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 20 years. It has to be the right guy with that identity. That, to me, is the most important thing. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
No, of course I agree with that. But the question is, if Drury hired Laviolette, obviously he felt he had that identity. So what happens after a year and a half?
He's not a bad coach, Laviolette. I don't think he's a bad coach. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. You just give up on that instead of having meetings all year. We don't know what went on, but from the from the outside looking in, the way these players have been treated, I mean, I like Chris Drury as well, but we don't know what's going on. Did he have the right relationship with the coach as far as talking and having discussions? We don't know that. So
well, let's get into that
right.
Let's get into that in a minute when we talk about breakup day. But first, let's go to Coach's Corner, play the commercial so we can laugh, and then I got a couple questions for Coach.
Hey everybody, Coach Ed here. I'm over here in the shop at Bella Italia, Marble Granite and Quartz, picking up my order for a nice little bathroom I'm doing. I've been a contractor almost as long as I'm a hockey coach. So listen to me when I tell you, when you want the quality work and craftsmanship, I'm going to see the boys over at Bella. They serve all 5 boroughs, Westchester, Long Island, all the way out to Montauk. Whether you're a Ranger fan, Islander fan, Devils fan, they're going to take care of you no matter what. Make sure you give them a call, 516-561-1018. Let's go Rangers.
All right, boys, bring it in.
So sometimes when I'm having a tough day, I just play that commercial and just watch it, and it just brings a smile to my face. But anyway, Coach, so this is an interesting question, and we might develop this a little bit depending on how quickly the Rangers hire someone. But there's a bunch of names being thrown out there: Tortorella, Mike Sullivan, if he gets let go by Pittsburgh, Carl, obviously from Denver, Jay Leach, an assistant coach, Jeff Halpern. So there's names being speculated. Quenneville was kind of shut down. If you're one of these guys, whether you're a veteran coach or a guy looking for your first head coach job, you get called into an interview with Chris Drury, whoever else is there, and James Dolan. What is the message that you're telling those guys that you would instill with this group of players? What is the message? Are you focusing X's and O's? Are you focusing clubhouse? Like, what are you kind of looking at there?
I think it's got to be a mix of both. I think they have to get on the same page. That seems to be what you hear on all these talk shows. The big thing is the locker room, the off ice. They were talking about the Capitals the other night, how these guys go out to dinner constantly together just as friends. There's not one guy that's on the outside of the group. That's very important because they're all pulling for each other on the bench. I watch a lot of video instruction on coaches and scouting, what they're looking for. And it's all about, at that level, not all about, obviously the talent is there and the ability, but at any high level, golf, hockey, all these sports, it all happens what goes on between the ears. And if that's not in sync, the team will not be successful. It happened in Vancouver. Tocchet was quoted as saying that he inherited this Pedersen-Miller controversy. He lived with it for a year, and it couldn't go much longer. He likes both players, yada yada, but it's got to be a joint effort. It's got to be together.
He's another guy. He's another guy that's an option, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you. I forgot to mention him. He got, I think, Vancouver said today, I think they're not renewing his contract. So,
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
I think he'd be a good option.
Well, I just want to clarify real quick. They non-renewed his contract to then offer him a more lucrative extension.
So, sorry, I didn't see. I just saw they did not.
A lot of people thought that, but it was really they want to keep him and offer him longer because I think if it would only been for one more year. So that was it. So
did he sign yet or no?
Now, they said by the end of the week he's going to decide if he wants to take that or not.
Got it.
All right, so there's my point again. The guy has a great year, a bad year, and they're going to give him more money. So how does that develop? So there had to be a rift between Drury and Laviolette on how they wanted to do things. That, to me, that's the bottom line. Otherwise, that happened in '94.
The owner.
It happened in '94 with Keenan and Neil Smith. Keenan wanted to do everything, and Neil Smith didn't want to give in, and Keenan ended up not staying. They didn't fire him. He just didn't.
Or the owner, though, Coach. It could be Dolan.
Well, the owner. I don't know how much input Dolan has. I'm not that familiar with it. I don't see things.
Well, it came out recently that Dolan last season with the Knicks, Dolan took part in the exit interviews, and he felt like it was very productive for him. So he was taking part in the exit interviews this year. So he does seem to be a little more listening to what's going on with the team at this point. I'm not saying he's like, I don't really think Dolan is this crazy guy that people say. I think he's a little hot-headed, sure, but he wants to win. I mean, he cares about the organization. He might not make good decisions, but yeah, maybe he said to Drury, like, hey, if it's not you, it's Laviolette. We don't know exactly what happened. Right? We have no idea. So, but anyway, so you're thinking clubhouse is the focus, but it's a balance. So what, like, from an X's and O's standpoint, you know, I posed this question to a few of my friends who are Rangers fans during the week. You know, let's say they run it back, which is a nightmare for a lot of fans, right? Like, it's still a talented team, right? It should be a playoff team if they correct the on-ice product, you know, the issues. Like, what X's and O's would you change? And then, I don't know if you can even speak to this, never being in an NHL locker room, but what can a coach really do to fix these locker room issues? You know, what would you say to the GM?
Well, when you go to these coaches seminars, there's a bunch. I mean, Eddie went through a lot of them with the Arrows. I never really did much, but there's a lot of, I mean, that's up to the leadership mostly. Like we were talking about last week, that's up to the leadership in the locker room. The coach at that level, I don't think is going crazy running. I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for, Ed? What's like a camaraderie, drills. I'm not sure
like
what
team building.
Yeah, team building. The coach isn't really involved in team building that much. I would say they are, but I'm sure the captain, assistant captains, the veterans, they should be doing more of the team building, like Trocheck taking Cooley into his house, stuff like that, and getting guys involved. And what's his name? The backup goalie. I'm shot.
Quick.
Jonathan Quick doing the same thing with the young guys, taking them in. And Lafreniere, when he came in, there was I think Mika was helping him out a little bit here and there. You know, that's what they need, and they got to be more involved in that. I mean, I'm not going to say, let's not say hazing is good, but that's like a team building thing to a level.
Well, you wouldn't call it hazing, right? Hazing implies a really inappropriate level.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying, I don't know what the
like
right
riffing,
word is.
You know, like riffing with guys,
right.
Like, you know, talking shit or whatever.
Like back in the late 70s, the Rangers had a thing. Rookies had to shave. They shaved the rookies' heads in the locker room.
Right, like that's fine. Right,
you know, stuff
they
like
still
that.
Do rookie parties and stuff like that.
Right, well, those kind of things. Those kind of things by the veterans coming in, like, you know, Eddie experienced in college. The senior group would do that to the freshmen and sophomore and so on. Those kind of things build team camaraderie. You know, you see it, you know, basically in the movie Major League, all that stuff that brings a team together. They need to find that focal point that's going to bring them together and pull in the same direction. And maybe Laviolette didn't do it, but that's got to come from the owner down. It's got to be a trickle-down effect. And it started when they got rid of JD. I'm sorry. The whole organization, I think, got a bad taste when that happened. With JD getting fired with Gorton. And the whole
They
thing.
said
just
that
was-
Tom Wilson killed the Rangers. Were they right with that whole Panarin debacle?
well, that's
tossed
when they
Panarin
hired
in?
Gallant, right?
Yeah, I mean, a
Well,
lot of
that's
people
why
are like, "Oh, the
No, they
Rangers
hired
changed a
Gallant
lot after that."
because the Rangers didn't respond to anything, and Gallant said on the interview that
Gorton and JD got fired with the riff with Dolan when Dolan didn't. Dolan released a
D'Angelo, I
statement. Well, Dolan released a statement about George Peros, saying he was unfit for the role when Wilson didn't get suspended for that. JD and Gorton, I guess, leaked or spoke out about that statement, saying it shouldn't have happened. And Dolan reacted and fired them both and hired Chris Drury. A lot of people think Drury ratted out JD and Gordon to get that job. So, I mean, look, there's a lot. This organization has been littered with drama for about 6 years. I mean, people are acting like this season is an anomaly in the sense of that the drama has followed the team all year. This organization has had drama since COVID. Since that year, the Angelo drama, the JD drama, the Ramsey drama, yada yada yada. Go down the line. There's been one thing after another. I don't know if it's because there's too much spotlight on the team, but I think the next coach coming in has got to kind of eliminate that somehow. Like, they have to have a vibe or a personality that is going to be conducive to, like, let's play hockey. Like, where is that? Like, none of these guys look like they have fun at all. Like, none of them look like they have fun playing hockey, which is crazy.
well, just by the fact that 3 players have come out and said that they're upset with their playing time, the way they're treated, something's not right. Whether that's on the GM or the coach, I don't really know at this point. We don't know. And that's not fair. That's creating a bad atmosphere. There's not the next man up mentality. It's like
Those
it's more
guys
of a
should
why am
not-
I not, it's more of a why am I not in their mentality. And that's not the one that's going to get you to win.
That
as a
is
team.
that is exactly what Little Ed has been harping on since they got rid of Gaudreau. And listen, I am not criticizing the Rangers getting rid of Gaudreau. I was an advocate for it. I do think they needed to get rid of that salary because I operate my brain in a salary cap world, and I know they want to improve the team, and he was overpaid. So I'm not backtracking on that. But that doesn't mean that Little Ed didn't. Well, that doesn't mean Little Ed didn't have a point in saying that there were adults in the room. Like, that's really what it comes down to, is like Gaudreau, Trouba, Blake Wheeler, even. These guys were like adults in the room for this locker room. This didn't happen with these guys speaking out when those guys were here. And they're gone, and now everybody's complaining, and nobody has filled that leadership void. So the next coach has to come in and identify who's the actual leader in this room and talk to that leader, right, coach? Like, and say, like, you and me, you're my guy. Like, you're my captain, whatever it is. You need to be the one that keeps this under control. Not that he's like a rat on the players or anything, but
No, but
he's a
he
bridge,
needs to be manipulated by the coach to do certain things in a good way. Going back to the Herb Brooks situation with the 80 team, he's got to be able to trust that leader, the captain, and a few assistant captains, and set a standard of how this team's going to run on and off the ice. And obviously, Meek is pissed off because of what they did to Trouba by his comments. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then the Panarin situation that just came out. That's not a good leadership role to show these young guys what's going on. That creates a stir, even though we didn't hear about it till now. But that had to be in the minds of the players. They all had to know about it for the last year or so, whenever it happened.
I'm sure they knew about it.
And that's all creates chaos.
And for the record, we're not here to even discuss that. In our minds, there aren't enough facts released to even make a comment on that. So that's why we're not talking about it. But you're right. Like, that's still a distraction in the locker room, right? Like, it's another distraction in the locker room. I'm sure all the players were aware of that situation. I'm sure. Like, there's no way they weren't.
I'm not saying who's right or wrong. So I'm not trying to do that. I'm saying a leader should be in that situation with the young players you're trying to develop. That's another part of developing young players. You never saw that. You never heard about that from Crosby, Malkin, that whole Letang, that whole leadership group. They have a culture there where if you didn't do it, I'm sure Sid's getting in your face at this point in his career.
So you're
they're going to be afraid,
man.
or they're going to be afraid to even the young guys coming in are going to be looking at him going, I got to do whatever he does. You know, this is how it is. You know what I'm saying? Not that he's going to be yelling and screaming or pushing him against the wall, but just by his attitude and his demeanor and his work ethic, it's unacceptable not to. Like Patrice Bergeron, we talked about over and over. It's got to be like that. And I think JT Miller is definitely more that line. So bringing him in is going to be a positive with Trocheck. But I said it over and over with Meeker and Panarin, they better buy in or they're not going to be successful. And Boyle's been on it. Boyle's been on it since the middle of the season with this North-South game that they're never going to win unless they play the North-South game.
You should have seen Boyle's.
Brian Boyle.
We'll talk about Boyle in a second. The last thing on this before we get to the breakup quotes, the breakup day quotes, I'm going to start with Little Ed on this, releasing hearts for some reason.
Did you see that? How did I do that?
I don't know.
I thought you were doing it on purpose.
It wasn't me. I was wondering what was going on.
PJ sending you a message. I don't know.
I didn't even do it on purpose. I just went like this, and then it like did it.
So you're like, boom, and like hearts released. I don't know what happened. So, Little Ed, you're the coach interviewing, and then I'll ask Coach the same question. Drury says to you, "Who's the captain of this team?" In the interview, what's your answer?
JT Miller.
You're saying JT. What do you say, Coach?
Same.
I'd say Trocheck. I'd say Trocheck, man.
Either one. I'm good with either one.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Let's just say not captain. Let's just say leadership, assistant captain's captain. You got to name 4 guys.
Right.
And then you could go with JT or Trocheck. I agree with you on that, but I would go with JT Miller.
Well, I think we should definitely have an episode or a segment on the captains. For
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
Where we all pick them.
But
I think we can do that next week.
The coach needs to sit down with the leadership group and look, it happened. We've said it over and over with Ovechkin when they won the cup. He bought into the system after speaking with the coach, saying this is what needs to be done for us to win. And Ovechkin bought into it. Panarin's got to buy into it. We need him to score. We need his points, but he's got to buy into it 100%. It can't. I understand they make mistakes, but he can't be making those mistakes more often than not.
But you don't think? I thought you said you want Drury to pick the captain first.
Me?
Yeah.
I would pick JT Miller.
Well, I think the coach
should pick the captain.
I think the coach should be. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I thought you said they should pick the captain first and then hire the coach based on like that team culture or whatever.
I don't have a problem with that if Drury came in and he named it.
I kind of agree though that they should include the coach. Yeah, sorry. I would if I were Drury, I'd have like 2 or 3 guys in my mind that as potential captains, and then I would ask the coach who's interviewing who would you pick, and just see who's aligned with me, like who's thinking the same way, you know, along those lines. Like, well, some guys are going to say Adam Fox, right? Like, I'm sure some interviewees would be like, oh, Adam Fox. Maybe if I'm Drury, I'm like, that's not the right mindset. I want somebody else.
But if,
like,
say you're bringing in Carl, he's not familiar with the league that much. I'm sure he's so busy with his college level and the junior team. He's not paying that close attention to what's going on.
He's not the right guy.
Right. To know JT Miller. So Drury's more hands-on.
Yeah.
So I would think I wouldn't have a problem if Drury named the right head coach.
The number one rule when you interview for a job is that you research that job. You research that firm. Who am I interviewing with? Where did they go to college? What's their career been? What have they argued? What can I talk to this person about? What kind of questions should I ask in this interview? So if Carl's interviewing for this job, he needs to do his homework on this Rangers team and come in with a plan, and he should be able to identify a leadership group in an interview, in my opinion, at least an initial one. And he could say, hey, look, like maybe when I get in the room, when I get in the room, I change my mind, but here's my initial reaction, right? He's got to be able to at least say that.
Definitely.
Well, without a doubt, I agree with that.
Well, the point I was what I was getting at before is I think that's why it's important for Dolan to be in the exit interviews, or maybe to even conduct his own. Because, like, what if, like, Trocheck or JT Miller says, like, we don't like Drury? Like, that's where the disconnect is. It's like, yeah, great. Like, if Trocheck or JT Miller or whoever decides to be captain says that they agree with Drury, or realistically they should be on the same page as Drury and the coach when they do end up hiring the coach. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, what if, like, that relationship right now doesn't even exist? Whereas I think JT Miller might be the better pick because he didn't experience the nonsense we just spoke about with Goudreau and Trouba and blah, blah, blah. To me, I see Trocheck. Maybe he's just so burnt out that he's just tired of answering the same questions over and over. But I don't think he's been conducting the interviews very well, personally. He just looks like defeated and like just not having any of the answers. I want my captain to find the answers and to say, you know what, like, maybe even call out some players or call out yourself. Take the I had a shit start of the season. I broke my thumb in Four Nations. Maybe I should have sat out. Take some accountability.
So let's talk about this. I mean, I think you're on the right path here, and there's a good transition into the breakup day quotes. They came out. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you're getting into it,
Yeah.
So I think the best way to do this, and we'll try to do this as efficiently as possible, but I think the best way to do this is to go player by player, and talk about the main quotes they gave. And I think that we really do need to start with Mika Zibanejad. This guy wears a letter for this team. We talk about that a lot. Little Ed harps on it more than any of us, but we talk about this a lot. Here's some of his quotes from breakup day. I feel like mentally what I went through the first few months was probably the toughest I've ever been through in my career. I don't really know what he means by that. Then he says, we didn't get up to the level of play we can. There was a lot of noise around our team this year. I'm not saying that is the cause of the season, but it wasn't the calmness I felt we had the year before. He also said when he talks about the divide between the players and the management, okay, he said, it starts with us players. We have to take ownership of what we do and how we go about things, which is good. But then he says, but I think it has to be cohesive with everyone. The organization doesn't work without the players. The organization for us players doesn't work for the people that work above us. We have to work together, and we have to look at it, and we have to talk about it. Let's just stop there for a second. I mean, Coach, like, generally speaking, like, this is a very introspective player. He's always deep and emotional. Where are we at with these comments from Mika Zibanejad, a guy who wears a letter talking about we need more cohesiveness with management on the day the team is packing their bags to go home?
Yeah, that's speaking out about the inner workings of the team, which I think should be more private. Obviously, Drury isn't being fired right now. So by saying that, you're just creating more of a separation. And again, to me, not a leader to me, not someone with an A on his chest should be doing that.
Rip it
if
right
anything,
off.
they should be discussing that amongst each other and then having a meeting with the captains with Drury and figuring out that culture they want to establish, whoever it's going to be. So, like we talked about, Blake Wheeler, they took the C off of his chest and they gave it to, what's his name? Shifley? Who got it in Winnipeg?
I think Shifley.
Because the captain of Winnipeg is Lowry, right?
Lowry.
Yeah, they took it away from Wheeler. Wheeler continued to play hard, did his job, and he didn't create any kind of animosity amongst the team. He accepted it. He did his job, and he moved forward. And
Tavares as well.
Zibanejad isn't acting like, if you're going to talk out against the organization publicly when it's already in turmoil, you're making it worse. And how is that showing the new players coming in the culture of the team?
To me, like, I do understand partially where he's coming from. He shouldn't be saying it publicly, but I do understand where he is coming from. Where they're like, I mean, we always say captains like Bergeron, and like, you always say like the big names, right? So like you got to think that Bergeron had some cohesiveness or some relationship with management where they were all on the same page generally, But Mika hasn't earned that yet, in my opinion. You know, like maybe if he was the captain and they did win the Stanley Cup or they did make it to the final or something like that, and he was setting an example for all the other players and playing 110% every single game, it'd be a much different story, but he's not. So he should not be. He's another guy, like I just said, should be just talking about himself, and that's it.
I mean, it's tough because, Zibanejad is in a very unique position contractually, right? He's signed for another 5 seasons after this. He's in this. He just completed year 3 of 8 of an 8-year contract. He makes 8.5. They can't buy out his contract. If they buy out his deal, it's $7.8 million against the cap for another 4 years. They can't waive him and they can't trade him. So he has complete control over whether he wants to leave this organization. And he's made it clear in another interview prior to breakup day where he said he was asked about that. Pretty much like, would you consider waiving it? Which honestly, I don't blame them for asking, but it's kind of a dumb question to ask a player. Like, what's he going to say? Like, yeah, I'm open to waiving it. Like, he's going to say no, right? But the way he said no speaks a little bit of volumes too. He could have just been like, no, I'm not open to it. I want to win here. I want to go down the Canyon of Heroes as a Stanley Cup champion or whatever. But instead, what he says is, I know what my contract says. Both parties agreed to it. And like I said, I think I earned it. Until it's time to adjust it, I have no plans of going anywhere. I've invested a lot of years here. That to me is a player who pretty much feels untouchable. And his comments on breakup day are not those of a leader, I got to say. I do think he took some accountability. I think people saying he took no accountability are wrong. He did say it starts with the players, right? So he did say we got to be better, but he should not be concerned with management. Like, what is he saying? There needs to be more communication. That's what I want to know. Like, I would have asked a follow-up question there. I would have been like, what do you mean by that? Like, are you saying that Drury should have called you and said, I'm thinking of waiving Gaudreau because he won't waive his no trade clause? Like, are you guys okay with that? Because if that's what he means, that's insane. Right. But there's other kinds of communication that he could mean like, hey guys, I waived Gaudreau, but here's why, and maybe that's what he means. Like that I could understand a little more. Like maybe a manager should do that, especially with the leaders of the team. It shouldn't be like I would just waive Gaudreau and there's no communication at all. Like after the fact, right?
But do you really think that needs to be explained? The players know the salary cap situation. They know what's going on. Does it really I mean, I think Drury should be a little more active in talking to the players. If it's anything like the show about the Maple Leafs, I'm sure he's talking to them somewhat. He was a captain himself. He's a leader. I think the players know that situation, just like he answered that question. I'm not going anywhere. I know my situation. And I'm sure he's pissed off about Trouba and the way they put him in a corner.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree with him, but like you said, it shouldn't be public.
And they got to get over it, right? Because their job is to play, not manage the team.
And he should have said, if it was me, I would have said to the guy interviewing me, that's between me and management. But as of right now, I'm not going anywhere. I'm looking to improve and get better with this team. Just like you said.
Bingo.
Talk about what I need to do. But I don't need to answer that question. It's none of your effing business.
Yeah, I would have been like, listen, the Rangers haven't approached me to ask me to waive. I have no intentions of seeking a trade. I'm happy to be here and I want to win here. Period. End of conversation. There's nothing else to discuss. And then
do we know who asked that question to him? Do we know who asked it?
I don't, but I'm going to guess
Molly
Walker. Oh, Andrew Crane. Okay. There you go. PJ.
I think we should hire Tortorella just to handle the press.
Yeah, he could be the press PR guy.
Press relations for the head coaching staff.
I would love it. I would love PR for the coaching staff.
No, what's the Trump speaker called? The girl? What's her name? Or like, what's her
press
title?
Secretary.
Yeah,
press
he
secretary.
should be press secretary of the Rangers.
Oh, I would do that in a heartbeat.
PJ, what did Boyle say on the podcast? You sent us the link.
So that's what I wanted to get to. Well, the first thing was Laviolette quote tweeted that quote by Mika talking about management, and Laviolette said When accountability is shared by everyone, it's usually owned by no one. Managers manage, coaches coach, players play.
So-
That line's been blurred by NYR. And then Boyle
So true.
one-upped it
True.
on the podcast. If anyone hasn't seen it, the New York Post put out a 1.5 minute clip. He didn't say Mika's name, but at the end, he's like, oh, you know who I'm talking about. He's like, when I played, I didn't give a shit what Sather was doing. I worried about playing, like worry about your teammates, worry about what your coach is telling you. You shouldn't be concerned with that. And he kind of talked about at the end of the podcast about those comments about Mika talking about his contract. And he said to the effect, he's like, yeah, you earned it, but you have to also live up to that contract now too. You can't just sign it and then just go, futz around and do whatever. You got to play and earn that money.
And
He
again,
also-
he also
kind of
said something
example
else,
is that-
right, about accountability. Sorry, coach, about accountability when you make a mistake. Like they were talking, I didn't see the episode or hear it, but I read something on Twitter. It was like, pretty much something like when you make a mistake on the ice, you have to like face the media or something like that, right? Like,
Essentially, he was saying that Mika's comments at the end, instead of talking about management and that type of thing, he should have been in a more kind of a way. I want to be here, but I want to, be the answer. I want to help do that, instead of just complaining about, that type of thing.
Communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, coach, I cut you off. I don't know if you.
No, it's all right. I mean, again, we're going to go back to the Sidney Crosby example. I'm not saying he's on that level of a point per player for 20 years, but Crosby's on the ice all summer. They always talk about it on the podcast. And Mika, all you hear about is he's DJing in Sweden and bullshit.
Yeah,
so, like PJ just said, hold it. He earned the contract. Now you got to strive to get better. Look at Brett Burns. He went to Brindamore and said, help me get better. I want to get better. This guy's a bona fide all-star, one of the best defensemen in the league. At the end of his career, wants to keep getting better, not just sign for $3 million and ride it out.
Yeah.
You have to have that attitude where, as a leader, okay, I'm getting my $8.5 million. I got to prove that. I got to get better. I want to get better. I need to get better for the team to be better. Instead of him saying, I earned it, I'm staying. No, you don't. Like he said, you earned it, but you got to live up to it.
I just don't. I don't really understand. I mean, a lot of his comments. I was texting in the chat when PJ was sending the Laviolette tweet. I didn't understand Laviollette's tweet because I guess I didn't fully grasp what Zibanejad was saying, like in his tweet. But I mean, in his comment. But dude, what really stuck out to me, and maybe this is unfair of me, but he says, I feel like mentally what I went through the first few months was probably the toughest I've ever been through in my career. Now, I don't know if he had a personal issue because that would explain it, but we don't know, right? Because he didn't talk about that. If he's talking about hockey, I mean, this is a guy that was traded from the Ottawa Senators, the team that drafted him. They traded him to a different team. He moved to a completely different city. He's had multiple concussions that have been reported. He's missed time with injuries. What happened to him in the beginning of this season? Did he get criticized or something? That this was the toughest thing
probably
in his career?
Probably the Trouba situation, the Goodrow situation, the summer leading into it.
I'm sorry. That is unacceptable.
Well,
for me.
I'm just
like
guessing.
If that's what it is, that is completely unacceptable for me. I can't tolerate that. Like,
Plus,
as a
the
fan,
Rangers
and we are
traded-
stuck with this guy.
The Rangers traded a fan favorite, someone who was very good for us, Brassard, for Zibanejad out of nowhere almost.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
And
Zibanejad-
developed him into a 1C, which we talk about development. He's an actual successful development that we've
There you
had.
go. There's an
You know,
example.
so there's one. Entrusted him as one of the few forwards that the Rangers have taken as like a 40, 50-point guy and turned into a 90-point, 80-point guy, two-way player, entrusted him with the first-line center position. He was a two-way stud. He was flying all over the ice for 4 years, signs a huge contract, and now he's sitting there going through the toughest thing in his career. What was so tough for you? The team was 12-4-1. at that point. They wanted to trade Trouba. You're friends with him. I'm sorry, dude. Tampa Bay cast Stamkos aside. They look like they're a Stanley Cup contender right now. They cast him aside so they can get Jake Gensel to improve their team, right? They did the same thing to Ryan McDonough. They threatened him with waivers if he didn't accept the trade to Nashville. Mikko Rantanen in Colorado, one of Nathan McKinnon's best friends, was traded in the middle of the night to Carolina without even – the guy was blindsided. He was like, oh, I thought we'd work out a deal. He didn't even know it was coming. Joe Sakic and Chris McFarland just dumped him to Carolina. That team looks like they're going to win the Stanley Cup this year. So, like, what are we doing here? Like, you're sitting there like, this is the toughest time for me because your friend is getting pushed out of the organization? Like, I'm just baffled. I'm sorry, I'm baffled. That is not acceptable to me. For that to be the toughest thing you went through in your career, you are not going to win a Stanley Cup if that is your mindset. You got to be tougher than that, dude. Like, you can be upset. You could be upset and say, I don't feel like Trouba deserved that. That sucks. But you got to go out and play. If you're getting paid to play hockey, dude, like, you can't sit there and mope and be minus 25 and be on for 3 goals against every single night and not score any goals. That's crazy. Absolutely mind-boggling.
It just made me think of another thing Boyle was talking about, and I know we give a lot of shit to Brooksy, but Brooksy said this was the most sensitive group he's ever covered in his entire career, and Boyle said plainly they're soft. We've said that a lot. I mean, it was a pretty visceral podcast. I recommend listening. I know we don't, it's our podcast here, but we don't like to give but it was very interesting. I've never heard, Boyle and other people be that harsh.
We can give Boyle some props. It's okay.
Yeah.
He's
the way he talks, he's someone would be a good assistant coach. He understands the X's and O's. He knows what it takes. I think he can relate to the players. I don't think it would happen, but when more and more I hear him talk, it makes sense to me.
He's spot on. They are soft. I mean, that is fair. All right. So last thoughts on Mika before we move on to Kreider.
No, Coach Ed, I mean, we all do. We all try to compare these guys to McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby, but then we stop ourselves by saying oh, those guys are on another level. There's a reason why those guys are on another level. Like Coach just said, Crosby didn't become Crosby or continue to be Crosby by just taking the summers off and, oh, I signed my contract. I'm good. I'm Sidney Crosby. Sure. He probably would have had an outstanding career still because he is Sidney Crosby. But the reason why he was able to continue that, and McKinnon now looks up to Sidney Crosby, and has that same mindset, and the list goes on. I was the one who said 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was, Zibanejad's going to win a Selke in the next 4 years, whatever I said. So I was comparing him to those players, those upper echelon type players. Winning the Selke in the NHL is extremely difficult, and I thought he was going to do it.
And you thought he was Bergeron light,
Right. And he completely just took a dive because I guarantee you he's not working out or working hard in the summers.
Yeah. I listen, I have a lot of faith in Zibanejad as I love Zibanejad as a player. I mean, like you said, you named your cat after him. But that mentality is not what fans want to hear after the season we just endured. I mean, look, they play the game and they're entitled to be human beings. But Coach, I mean, they play without the fans, they got nothing. They don't have $8.5 million a year, right? Without us paying for all the memorabilia every game. Me in particular, I probably pay for Brett Berard's salary alone, right? So I'm just saying, obviously not, but I'm just saying they owe us something. It's not that they don't owe us nothing. They owe us something. I mean, that's why when guys struggle, I hate to use baseball as an example, but I don't know if you guys saw, Juan Soto, has not been hitting home runs for the Mets. He came to bat and the fans stood up and they gave him a standing ovation despite his struggles, which is very unlike New York fans or Met fans.
He's still doing pretty good.
I mean, yeah, he's doing all right, but his home run totals are down, right? So without the homers, it's whatever. But anyway, the point is he's been getting a lot of press about struggling. Yankee fans giving him a lot of crap. Met fans gave him a standing O. He gets an RBI single. after the game, they interview him. They asked him about that, and he was like, "I was shocked. I was taken aback. Fans don't realize how much that means to me. You know, like that means so much. It means the world to me to do that. Like these guys play for the fans. So if you want the fans to do that for you, Mika, you can't not take responsibility for your season. Like I don't want to hear anything except I played like ass this year, and I'm going to be better next year, and this team's going to be better. Period. I won't let it happen. That's all I want to hear him say. I don't want to hear him be like, "Oh, I went through so much." And what did you go through? What did you go through? Little Ed, you went through more this season than Mika Zibanejad. I went through more than Mika Zibanejad. Coach, you went through more than. Give me a break, dude. Give me a break.
You're making $8.5 million. You get car service to the game. You get meals cooked for you. You got a beautiful wife, a beautiful child. Give me a break is right. Play the
I don't know what to
freaking
say.
game.
Like I don't want to be tough because maybe he had a personal issue and that would be different.
But that's not what he
That's
said.
possible.
That's not what
It's
he
not what he
said.
said. Yeah, it's not what he
Right.
said. I agree. Yeah.
To me, it directly relates to what happened in the offseason into the season.
Yeah, it definitely
And
does.
he's got to
It
get
definitely
over
does.
that, and it's not right. It's not
And
right.
Well, since we're
it boils down to what you just said too. If you care about the fans and you care about what they think, then you have to come out with these personal issues, like a lot of players do. A lot of players do come out and tell the truth, what they're going through. And 9 times out of 10, the fans, what's his name on Colorado, had the cocaine problem. Now he's back and he's still like a fan favorite. Just be honest with what you're going through. Most of us have gone through a lot of the same shit these guys have gone through. We can relate or whatever you want to call it, feel bad for them, and then they get back out there and play. If you're gonna bottle it up, I'm not going to feel bad at the end of the season on a podcast saying that you have nothing to feel bad about or nothing
Yeah, I don't
to
know.
be upset about.
There's some rotten in this room. And Coach, you're talking about the situation in the offseason with Goody and Trouba. I mean, let's go on to Chris Kreider. So he had a few telling quotes. They asked him about Goodrow and Trouba specifically, and he gave a long answer instead of a short one, which I don't understand, but he did. He said it's part of professional sports, but obviously at a certain point it becomes a distraction. 2 guys that were massive leaders for us and a big part of our room. I think there was it's dynamic and it's changing an environment like that. Not even to get into the personal relationships we all had, but good people they are, things that they did. It was certainly challenging. Then they asked him if he still wanted to be here. He says, "This is home for me. It's the organization that gave me an opportunity to live out my dream. I have incredible relationships. Obviously, this is where I want to be." They asked him about the trade memo. He says, "I mean, that wasn't the first time. It won't be the last time that kind of stuff comes out. That's also part of professional sports, unfortunately. Lucky I don't have social media. I wasn't aware of it until someone brought it to my attention. I just tried to show up and do your job the best of your abilities." Fine. But, I mean, to give such a long answer about Trouba and Gaudreau is a little wild. I mean, it's been months, Coach. It's been months since those guys were traded.
The way he said it was different.
I
Yeah,
thought
the
that
way
was a
he
good
said it was
answer.
different. Go ahead.
I thought he gave a good answer. I don't think that's a bad answer. You know, why do they have to ask these guys this? They all know what happened. Again, like you said, ask them, what are your plans for next year? How are we going to do this? What do you think the team needs? Don't ask them about what the season just happened. It's an exit interview. What are we doing now? I remember when the Rangers lost.
I
when
get
they had
it, but they're reporters, Coach. I mean, they're doing
I
their
know,
job.
but
He needs to be
again,
better at answering the question, not them.
Well-
They can ask any question. You can't, you know, if something bad happens, right? Like, forget, I'm not going to use politics to avoid it, but like, if something bad happens and you interview somebody, you're not going to just avoid. I'm not going to ask you about what bad happened. What are you going to do going forward? Like, no, I'm going to ask you about what happened because there were mistakes that were made and there were issues. So I don't blame the reporter. I blame the answer by the player.
Again, if there was true leadership on the team when this happened, Mika and Kreider and Panarin or whoever should have came out and said, "Look, this is a business. We need to work hard. Let's leave that in the back. We got to finish and get into the playoffs." But they let it linger.
Why didn't Chris Kreider do that? Why didn't Chris Kreider do that?
I don't know. I can't answer that.
Because Chris Kreider never wanted to be captain in the first place. Otherwise, he would have been. So what I was saying or trying to say is he said it a lot differently than Mika. Mika said it as like my feelings were hurt. Kreider was like it really affected the team because our leader was gone. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference there. Like Kreider was saying like there was no one to step up. Mika was saying like, oh, I wasn't gonna step up because my feelings were hurt. Kreider, like, if he wanted to step up, he would have stepped up and been captain. It was clear that he was very fine with being an assistant captain and leading in his own little bubble in his own ways. You know, that's why, like, with all the rumors surrounding Kreider, like, you kind of just got to take Kreider for what he has, for what he can give, and not really expect much more from him.
I just don't like it. I just look. I want players
it's still
to
a
be
shitty
honest.
answer, but it was.
I want players to be honest, but he could have said something like, "Listen, it was hard for us. Those two guys are our friends, but it's always hard. I've been through times where Zuccarello got traded, Lundqvist got bought out. All those things are hard. It sucks, you know. But we as a group need to be able to move on from that, and we didn't do it. That's it. Like, that's it. Period. Like, I don't want to hear like, oh, they're such good. Okay, dude, like their ionized product was not good enough. The GM wanted to trade them. Period. That's it. Like, get over
first
it.
of all,
Get over it.
Not everybody's mind works like a courtroom lawyer, and they can process these questions and do it right. These
Fair.
are normal people like we're talking about. So they're put on the spot. What?
No,
they're
you're
put on the
right.
spot by a reporter.
Right.
They give an answer
Kreider
that's
has
in
a
their
law
mind.
degree from Boston College, and
He has a law degree?
No,
No.
You know, they're put on
He
the
took
spot.
classes
Like
on the
I
side.
said, this should have been nipped in the bud a long time ago, and the leadership wasn't there. It wasn't carried forward. They should have had a closed door meeting when that Trouba incident happened, and it should have been taken care of amongst the players. The coach should have said a few words, and it should have moved on, and the players should have took care of it.
All right. Before we move off Kreider, he also revealed that he had a back injury early in the year. Then he had an inner ear issue that resulted in vertigo. And then he had a hand injury after the Four Nations that's going to likely require surgery. So how much of his season are we putting on these injuries? A lot, a little. And then also, how do you feel about players just kind of like giving you a laundry list of injuries? Does it feel like an excuse to you, you know, after the season's over and they didn't perform, or is it a reason? Like, because there's a difference, right? But excuse versus a reason. At least I always make that distinction. Coach, we'll start with you.
I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, we always speculate that maybe he's hurt, maybe he's, you know, he's still going through something, blah, blah, blah. And you're asking him a question, he's giving you an answer. If you're asking, why didn't you get 50 goals? How come you lacked here? How come you didn't play physical? He's giving you an answer. He fought through it. If he would have sat out all those games, a lot of people would have said he's soft. Why couldn't he play through it? So he did. He tried.
Well, it was a little interesting, though, Coach, that he sat out for about 10 games. And then as soon as the trade deadline ended, he was back in. I found that very interesting. First game after the trade deadline.
It's definitely a coincidence.
I mean, the conspiracy theorist in me is a little bit more. That's a little more than a coincidence.
Well, that's the team doctors and stuff too. Now you're saying like Kreider paid them not to tell him that he can't play or something. Like,
I don't think he paid anybody. No,
but not paid, but told them to say like sit me out. The trade deadline's coming up. But I don't know.
I blame a lot. Look, I think Kreider. I've been telling PJ this behind the scenes in our chat, not in the group chat, but there's a small part of me, a big part of me wants to blow up this roster. We'll talk about this in the grades, but a small part of me wants to see Chris Kreider rebound next year as a Ranger. And there's a part of me that tries to go through permutations of this roster with him still there, but I don't know what's going to happen. We'll talk about it more. A couple more before we move on, though. I know we're running late here. Adam Fox, potentially a captain of this team going forward. People are talking about that. I know we don't agree, but a couple of people have speculated. So he says it's hard not to look at.
What do you mean a couple of people? Fans?
Well, he's a no. Like, it's been speculated he's a potential fit for captain of this roster going forward by analysts and stuff like that. So it's hard not to look at us as players and say, why is this happening? He's referring to all the coaches being fired. We seem to have a lot of success, and then I don't know, it turns. I don't think us as players at any point didn't like Lavi or thought his message wasn't getting through. It just seemed the execution was not there. I think we want to be able to come in with a coach that's here for as long as we're all here and even outlast us as players, because that means we're having a lot of success. Everyone has to really look in the mirror. This year was unrecognizable from the team that made the conference finals 2 of the past 3 years.
That's perfect. Maybe he is captain material.
I love that. I got to say, I loved it.
Yeah,
I was going to say I was wrong about McDonough with him being captain material. Maybe I'm wrong about Fox. I mean, he tells it like it is. He does take accountability more often than not.
Yeah. No, I loved it from Fox. I got nothing bad to say there. That's look in the mirror and see what's going on. Why does this keep happening? That's exactly what he should be saying. So yeah, nothing more to say.
Was
there,
he
right?
asked about the Goudreau and Trouba situation? Because I was about to say, he doesn't mention that, but was he asked? How come they ask certain people, but they don't ask Fox?
That's true. I don't know.
I'd like them to all answer the same questions.
Or maybe like
provide written responses.
Yeah.
Or maybe like political interviews, they don't want to show what Fox said because it was the one that should be. They want to show the Mika one because it's controversial.
Yeah, maybe who knows? Okay, couple more. We'll do here. Keandre Miller, a favorite of this podcast. He was asked how his season went. So I'm going to pitch this to Little Ed. He says, I mean, not just my game. I think throughout this team, there were a lot of ups and downs throughout the year. I was obviously a big part of that. I didn't love how my season went this year. I was listening to a lot of the noise and just not really playing the game I wanted to play. That was a hard season for me to kind of get a grip of how I wanted to play. There was a lot of noise at the beginning, but I thought I did a good job of just staying true to myself and showing up every day with a smile on my face and a willingness to get better. Okay.
Willingness to get better.
Then, in addition to that, his feelings going into needing a new contract. So we'll tie this in. Kind of hard to talk about my future here, obviously. I have a great agent, and that's going to help me throughout this summer's process. I love being a New York Ranger. I think this has been some of the best years of my life. These last 5 years have been unforgettable in about every aspect you can think of. Okay. Little Ed, what are your thoughts on these quotes from Keandre Miller?
Well, once again, I wanted him to answer the hard questions. But, dude, I don't know, man. He could say, I had a bad season. I really want to bounce back. I want to negotiate a contract that's fair for both sides. I want to be a Ranger. I love being a Ranger. There's a lot of things I need to work on. Literally, my agent's going to take care of that. It's been the 5 best years of my life with my girlfriend on Instagram and blah, blah, blah. Give me a break, dude. What are these guys talking about?
I can understand his agent being like, listen, when you're interviewed, you're looking for a new contract. Do not say that you sucked. Because I don't need Drury quoting you in negotiate. I could maybe see that as being a reason for that quote. But you need a new contract, coach. And his response is kind of hard to talk about my future here.
Yeah.
Why?
If I'm listening, if I'm Drury and I'm listening to these interviews, I'm like, gone.
Yeah,
literally.
gone. Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's like swiping left or right on Tinder. It's like, nope.
No,
You gotta be kidding me.
If I'm the GM, I'm thinking, look, I think Keandre Miller has potential still. He's still young. I think he's got all the tools. I do. I think that there's a really strong chance they trade him and he becomes a beast on another team. However, I'm probably trading him, at this point, not just because of these quotes, but you cannot think that you deserve $6-7 million a year with the season you just had. If that's where you're going, my agent's going to handle it. And your agent, by the way, is the same agent as Barclay Goodrow, right? Who's probably really annoyed that his client got waived by Chris Drury. And I'm just moving on from this kid. I just don't see it happening here. He's going to be a beast. I guarantee you he gets traded to Minnesota and he becomes a beast. Guaranteed.
I don't see that at all.
Mark it. Just write it in stone. It's happening.
I used to see it because of his tools, but unless there's some guy out there that's that's all of a sudden going to teach him how to play defense. Listen, play defense is a different story than producing offensively. It's not going to happen. He didn't grow up a defenseman. He has no defensive instinct. You always write in the chat in NHL 26, defensive awareness, 0.
Yeah, 0.
Like zero. It's not
Yeah,
even
I
a
know.
joke. If you don't
I
grow up a
know.
defenseman and you don't learn the game from a very early age, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Chris in the chat, give me an example of a defenseman who did not grow up a defenseman and ended up being a Norris Trophy winner or something.
With a
Then
0
I'll just shut my
defense.
mouth. Yeah.
All right, so last
Dustin
one.
Bufflin.
Oh, that's true. And Brent Burns. Brent Burns went on to be he was a forward. He played D in the middle of his career. So that's 2 examples.
In the middle of his career? Oh, he was a forward in the NHL. All right.
He started at right wing with San Jose, yeah.
But he's also always looking
Minnesota.
to get better, like Coach just said.
No,
yeah. So all right, last one.
Stronger mentally.
Last one, Vinny Trocheck. There's more players that are interviewed, but we'll be here all night. So Trocheck says there's always outside noise. It's on us inside this room to make sure the outside noise doesn't get to us, whether that's talking to someone individually or sticking together as a team, as a family. He then says, I really believe in this locker room. I believe in everybody. I obviously believe in the talent we have. I just think it's a matter of us as a team sticking together, figuring out the right way to go about things moving into next year. And once we have that team belief, then it starts to snowball in a positive direction. And finally, the quote that stood out to me, and for some reason I can't find it. I don't know, PJ, if you have it, but he talked about lifting up. Oh, here it is. I think it's on us inside this room in order to make sure the outside noise doesn't get to us, whether that's talking to someone individually or if it's sticking together as a team and as a family. We can get better at that. Lifting guys up instead of bringing guys down. I think that goes a long way. That stood out to me. Okay, that's a very, very specific comment. He's talking about inside the locker room, and he says we can get better at lifting guys up instead of bringing guys down. What is that? Am I reading too much into that? That seems very specific.
No, that's
comment.
a good. That's hitting it right on the
calling
head.
Guys out, like I said before.
That's hitting it right on the head.
What does that mean, though? That was there something in the locker room where guys were being brought down during the year?
That means that guys came in or were at a bar having a dinner and were saying bad things about the management and this is screwed up and they shouldn't have did that. Instead of harping on the negative, they should have been focusing on how they're going to get better so more of this doesn't happen.
Yeah,
and that's a cancer. That's not the culture that you're looking for. Well, that's what he's saying. So obviously something was going on that we don't know about that may come out in the future, but things were not going in the right direction in the locker room.
And maybe he's trying to set the tone early. I mean, we keep saying that he's going to be the one to wrangle JT Miller or whatever. If there even was a really big issue in Vancouver, which I'm starting to really think that it was probably the other way more so than, JT Miller's fault, but whatever. Maybe he's just trying to set the tone early in that regard too, where moving forward, we're going to be supporting each other. We're not going to be calling each other out in a negative way. I mean, we've talked about it too, though, where certain guys do need to be called out sometimes, and that's part of the captain's responsibilities. But you have to be able to back it up.
It has to be. I read that as not just calling guys out, as bringing them down. I read that as some kind of
it's setting the culture.
It's not the right word to say bullying or anything like that. That's a little dramatic, but some kind of there's players are being affected by other players in the room, bringing them down, not encouraging them to succeed. So there's a culture of almost quitting. I don't know. I don't know what to say exactly about it, but it stood out to me as something interesting to keep an eye on going forward. And though, I mean, his answers are part of the reason, honestly, why I think he should be the captain.
There's only
JT,
one.
JT would have had good quotes, but his good friend passed away, so he wasn't at breakup day. JT quotes.
Look, there were a lot of negatives. Most of these exit interviews were negative, and then you had VC, you had DeHaan, you had Jones comments, you had 3 or 4 guys with bad comments inside the organization that just show that things were not cohesive inside the locker room. That shows you right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too much
Well,
negative. Somebody's they gotta have some big time off season
team bonding.
building. Something's got to
Yeah.
go on. Golf tournament, something. Where
Yeah,
this gotta come
PJ,
together.
PJ, pop in here. Any other quotes you want to go before we move on? Because we got to wrap this segment up and go on to the season
We got to
grades.
move on.
No, I think you guys nailed it. There wasn't anything else.
That stood out.
I thought actually the one funny quote was from Dehan, and me, like a Bash Shesty fan. He said, "Excuse my French, fuck, he's good. We really wasted a goaltending performance this year."
Yeah,
I thought it was just funny.
Oh, dude, he was funny because they also asked him to reflect on his year, and he goes, "Wasn't much to reflect on. I played 3 games."
Yeah, he said he was a crumb on the third pair.
It's so funny. All right, so let's go to our season grades. We each took 4 players, so we're gonna rotate. Just generally, what's their grade for the season? Coach, you know how it goes: A+, A minus, B+, whatever you want to do, and then what that player needs to work on during this long off season. It's the first time this group has really had a long off season in a while. I know they were knocked out in the first round against New Jersey, but it's much different going home on April 20th versus May 10th or whatever the hell it would be. So we'll start with you, Coach. I gave you Matt Rempe. It's a fourth line plug, and I feel like Matt Rempe for Coach is perfect. So his year, 42 games, 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points, 117 hits, 67 PIMs. What's your grade on Rempe, and what do you think he needs to work on?
I'm going to give him a B- based on his talent level and what he did. He got away from the fighting. Not that he got away from it. It didn't become a necessity in the game for him to have a fight every game. He's clearly trying to make his game better. The fourth line was very positive for a good stretch of 15 games or so in that playoff run or push or whatever you want to call it. I think he just needs to continue to work on his hockey IQ and study film and see what he's got to do. I think his skill level is there. Like you had said, I thought last year watching him in the warm-ups in Florida and stuff in the playoffs last year, I thought he's a very skilled player watching him with the puck. He's obviously no first-line player, but I don't think he's just a fighter. No. I think he's got underrated hands, yeah. Yeah. Underrated skating ability, too. He just looks awkward because of his size, but I give him a B-. I think he's definitely going to be a player that's going to work all summer again. Because he said as much. He's working with Kreider this summer. All right, Little Ed. I do think. Excuse me. Wait 1 second. I do think one of his problems. He got a nice goal the other night in front of the net. I think he gets too tight on the goalie because he's so big he can't get the stick out. So he's got to learn how to get that space in front of the net. So hopefully Kreider does work with him on that. Well, that's like the film you're saying. He's got to watch that and study him. I think he gets too tight on the paint. Little Ed, Adam Fox, he had kind of a weird season, 74 games, pretty good numbers, 10 goals, 51 assists. He was +9. He had 108 blocks, 40 hits, 40 takeaways, 76 giveaways. Those are his D numbers. And obviously the whole Four Nations issue, and didn't score a goal for like 30 games to start the year. I don't know what the hell is going on, but a weird year for Fox. So overall, what do you got for him with the grade, and what do you want him to spend his long summer working on?
I'm going to give Foxy a C+. Definitely a rough start to the season. I mean, yeah, you put it best, weird. Just a weird season for him. But what stands out to me is his block shots. I mean, even when he was winning the Vezina and was putting up a ton of points, that's something that I said he was never going to, get over the hump. What'd I say?
You said Vezina, yeah.
Yeah, Norris. I thought he wasn't tough enough. He wasn't blocking enough shots. He wasn't getting in the corners. But I wanted to point out that the last couple of games of the season where it seemed like everyone else was kind of giving up, Fox was still blocking some shots in the slot, still fighting for the puck behind the net. Kind of doing the right things. So, but that being said, he still should be the one putting up a ton of points. So if he's going to focus on the side of the game I want him to get better at, he can't forget about the side of the game he was already good at. So now he's got to find the nice middle ground. So for me, I think he needs to work on his skating a little bit. And defensemen in the NHL can always put on a little bit of size. just to avoid those injuries, getting little bumps and bruises in the corners and just improving his longevity for the season.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. Skating and hitting the gym for sure are two things he could do. All right, PJ, had to do it. Gave you Igor Shesterkin, 27, 29, and 5, 905 save percentage, 286 goals against. According to Evolving Hockey, he was 6th in the league with 28.59 goals saved above expected. So what's your grade on him, and what does he need to work on?
I know everyone's expecting an A, but I'm being realistic. I'm going B-. I thought he had an awesome start to the year, a good end, had a lull. Definitely could be more. So part of what I think he could be more consistent, not have that lull. But ultimately, at the end of the year, he was the one guy that was busting his ass trying to do what he could to will them in. I mean, as much as he could. And obviously work on starts of the game. I know a lot of the defense didn't help. But ultimately, I think if the defense even gets back to league average, not worse in the league, I think his game will follow right in suit.
Yeah, in typical Rangers fashion, can't take accountability, have to blame somebody else. I love that at the end there. You slip that in. No, but I think B- is fair. Okay, I was expecting an A+, but B- is good.
I don't want to be too biased here.
Yeah. All right, so I gave myself Chris Drury. So this is tough because a lot of the moves he made, I agree with. From a video game perspective, but this isn't a video game, so I'm gonna give him a D on the season. I don't want to give him an F because I do think that he identified a lot of the problems that needed to be fixed, but I just think he handled it so poorly. And look, as much as I hate what Zibanejad said, it doesn't mean Zibanejad is wrong, right? About when you're a general manager, you're a manager of people. You got to know how to manage people, and he just didn't push any of the right buttons. It didn't work. Now, maybe a year from now, I flop on this and say, you know what? He did what he had to do, and he pushed. This ended up pushing out all the soft guys on the team, or something like that. But yeah, I just don't think he pushed any of the right buttons. And if we're going to sit here and blame the coach and say coach had to go because he didn't push the right buttons, you got to say the same thing about the GM. And honestly, I'm a little surprised that he still has a job after the season the Rangers just had. And so then, what does he have to do this offseason? I think he's got to really, the number one issue is correctly identify which of these players do not want to give 110% for this organization based on whatever reason. It doesn't, I don't care what the reason is. If it's Trubin Gaudreau, if it's, I hate New York, I don't care. He needs to correctly identify that by getting these players to open up to him and get rid of them. And that's it. That they got to clear that out of the room any way they can. So that to me is his number one job. And then from there, the rest follows suit, right? So I give him a D. I'm not too happy with Drury right now. Back to coach, Braden Schneider. 80 games, 6 goals, 15 assists, 21 points. He was +9 on the year with 18 PIMs. Kind of low on the PIMs, I thought. He announced that he had a torn labrum and he had surgery. So he said he's had it for 2 years, coach. Since 22-23, he's played with a torn labrum. And he finally is able to have surgery because they missed the playoffs. So I don't know what you want to say about that. But, what's his grade and what does he need to work on other than healing his shoulder?
Well, it's hard to give him a bad grade if he's telling me he had a torn labrum. He wasn't as physical as he was for the previous years, for sure. He had a pretty much. It's hard to say that anybody had a lull because the whole team was so bad. So I think it just snowballed. Everything gets compounded. Again, if Kreider gets a few deflections for power play goals, Mika gets some one-timers on net, they're in the playoffs. That's the bottom line. So, and we're not having a lot of these conversations. I'm going to give him a B. I'm going to give him a B because I don't think he's got to work on much other than getting healed, because I think his offensive ability came through a little bit more. I think if he gets more of a chance, he can put up a few more points. And I've seen how he works on things, so I'm sure he's going to work on his game where he needs to.
Yeah, he said, quote, at the end of the season, I don't want to go into next season with any excuses. So I'm excited to see what he looks like completely healthy if that was the case, because he said he couldn't even be physical. Cousin Ed, at a step away for a second. Little Ed, you're next with Berard.
I mean, Berard, I don't think it was a huge sample size for what he was able to. I guess for the games that he did play, you got to give him an A+. So he gave 110% every game, every shift. I mean, I don't really have a reason not to give him I guess I shouldn't give him an A+ because that's perfect. So let's just give him an A. So he obviously has some things to work on, right? Your teacher never gives you an A+ because no one's perfect. So yeah, I mean, like just like anyone else, kid his size, he's got to hit the gym and stay focused on that. Look up to players like Housley. I mean, Kreider obviously had a bad year, but his physique wise, you got to look at players like that able to withstand a little bit of a beating. So that obviously that's would be my thing. Is just hit the gym.
Do you see him as bottom 6 next year, or like
if he hits the gym and he comes into with a strong training camp, like I said, with his energy and his mentality, it seems like he wants to get better. I don't see why he can't crack the top 6. But there's not room for everyone. This roster is going to be very interesting. Like Trocheck said, he has no idea. We have no idea how the team's going to look. But I think he has the tools and I think he has the mindset to be able to crack the top 6. I wouldn't be upset if I saw him up there.
Yeah, and he'll be competing with Gabe Perreault and PJ's next guy, Brennan Othman, who played 22 games, had no goals, still looking for his first NHL goal. 2 assists, +7, 43 hits. What did you say? It's only 22 games, but in those 22 games, what grade would you give him? And look, he's got to make the roster next year in training camp, right, at this point. So what does he got to do to make the team?
Yeah, I don't know if you consider this harsh or not, but for me, I gave him a C. I just, unfortunately didn't really have the production. And I know at least for the first, 12 to 15 games of his season, he was on the bottom 4th line with Brodzinski and Rempe, but they also got goals and assists. So, the fact that he wasn't getting it, I knock him a little bit for that. And then even when he was playing with Trocheck and Panarin, he only had 1 assist in probably like 6 or 7 games. So I'd like to see him produce a little bit more there. But, he definitely showed a lot, that he could potentially play in the NHL and definitely had moments. As far as what I want him to work on, I think he's got to work on his skating, get a little bit quicker, and, a little more shooting accuracy. I know that's his thing, but it seemed like he missed the net a lot, and just consistency game to game, which any young player needs.
I think C's a little harsh, but
yeah, I mean, no goals, 2 assists, 22 games. I could see
+7. He wasn't a liability out there all around.
Yeah,
I would have went higher. I thought he looked good. Yeah, I thought he looked good, but the production wasn't there. I get it.
I just don't see. You keep saying, what do you see Berard or him as a top 6? Who are you taking out of the top 6? Let's go over that again.
Yeah, they might be third liners, but I think there's probably 2 spots for Berard, Perreault, and Othman going into camp. I think that's probably what you're looking at. So 2 of those guys will probably make it. One of them will be in Hartford.
We have no idea what the team's going to look like. And coach, it could be even like 2 or 3 years out when some of these guys cycle out too, where they.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that I could see, but not next year.
No, yeah. I'm just. All
right. So
historically,
moving on to me, Will Cooley. I gave myself an easy one. 82 games, played every game, 20 goals, 25 assists, 45 points. He had 301 hits, set a Ranger record. I am giving him an A+. I mean, guy won the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award, and good reason. What a season. I was not expecting him to be a 20-goal scorer this season. I thought maybe he could get there at some point, but now I'm thinking he could be a 30-goal scorer. So I'm just – he was the lone bright spot for me this season. And what does he need to work on? Maybe his hands, right? Like maybe his finishing ability to improve there. I think he's going to obviously work on his whole game. Yeah, his whole game he's going to work on. But I think that he had 20 goals, probably had 3 or 4 taken away with offsides calls. But but there's another 5 or 6 that he could have had if maybe he had a little better finishing ability. So I think, he's got to just spend a little bit of time on that too, and keep rounding his game out. And yeah, he could score 30 goals some point soon. So
especially with more power play time. I don't think he had any power play goals. I could be wrong on that.
Well, that's out of his control, right?
He should focus on taking Kreider's spot, and then we could see him scoring 50. Because we never thought Kreider could score 50.
Jeez, let's get 30.
Saying, we never thought Kreider could do it, and all of a sudden he did it. Cooley's
my dad said it for years.
I hope we clip this one day.
My dad said it for years. Kreider's going to score 30 goals, and he never did. And then as soon as my dad passed away, he scored 50 goals. It's like ridiculous.
The brutal thing was he was always like 28, 29 too. It was right there.
If he stays on this path, maybe you heard it here first.
Let's give little Ed. Go ahead, uninterrupted. Make the clip on Will Cooley. Say it so we can clip it.
He's got the skill set. He's got the mentality. He wants to improve. He could be a Matty Tkachuk type player, and if he stays on the path, take Kreider's spot in the power play and put in 50.
All right, there it is, Coach. I was going to give you JT Miller, but I decided not to, and instead I want to hear your thoughts on James Dolan. What's your grade for him as an owner?
I don't know. That's not a good question for me because I don't pay that close attention to that.
All right, go with JT Miller then. We'll give you JT Miller.
Well, JT Miller, did he have a point a game as a Ranger? I think he was up near a point a game, right?
Yeah, he was point a game.
Yeah, I think 34 and 32.
What could you not? He's got to be at least an A. What can he work on? He's at the level of his game in the NHL where he knows what he needs to work on and what he needs to get better. I don't think there's much. I don't think he's going to be much of a. He's not going to be any kind of a 50 goal scorer. I don't think. He's going to be around that 30, 35, 80, 85, 90 points. And he's just going to be that hard-nosed player, Sam. And it's just going to be the kind of player you need in the playoffs.
Love it. Yeah. So what does he got to work on going into next year?
I don't know if there's much he needs to work on. Maybe just a little bit more of his strength to keep up.
Anger management.
Leadership.
He's working on his golf game.
Yeah. Did you see that? He's trying to qualify.
No, I didn't.
Oh, well, hold on, because you can't criticize Mika for DJing and then hear this and not have the same reaction.
Yeah, he's trying to qualify for the U.S. Open at Oakmont.
Hello. He's a point per game player. If Mika had a point per game, we wouldn't be talking about him.
Correct.
If Mika was a point per game player,
everyone loved that he was DJing.
Yeah, exactly. If he had a point per game and 28 goals and 45 assists, he could DJ to what his heart's desire.
All right. Clip that, DJ. Little Ed. Keandre Miller, 74 games, 7 goals. I really was.
I love your strategic on giving people who he gave.
Yeah, I had to be. 7 goals, 20 assists. 27 points. He was an even 0 on the year. He did have 110 block shots and 107 hits, surprisingly. Led the team tied with Artemi Panarin with 97 giveaways and only 47 takeaways. So what does he got to work on, and what's your grade for him?
97 giveaways.
That's crazy.
In 74 games.
That's so bad as a defenseman. That's so bad as a defenseman.
And Panarin, who I didn't include in this in these grades, had 80 games and 97 giveaways. So he had 6 more games. That's how bad Miller was with giveaways. Go ahead, Lil.
I got to give him an F, man. I think he brings nothing to the table as a defenseman. If he was playing forward, it'd be a different story. Honestly, like 97 giveaways in whatever games, like that's just crazy. Like you can't.
An F.
Like it's hard to do that on purpose.
I love it.
What do you give him?
It's such good content. I just love it. You gave him an F.
Honestly,
what is
like I hate to say, like I hate to continue to harp on it, but like I really watch him play, and it makes me so frustrated as a fan. I can't even imagine what the coaches must feel like, and even like his teammates. Like I If I was like his partner, I'd be like, "What are you doing? Like, what was that? When did you? Who taught you to send the puck up the middle of the ice in the NHL?
All right, so what
Like,
does he
who
got to work
taught you
on?
that?
Let's say he comes back. What's he got to work on?
Dumping his girlfriend.
He's got to dump his girlfriend. That's step one. Because speaking of timelines, that directly coincides when you started dating her. 100%. Got to ditch his girlfriend and focus on hockey. Watch film. Skate with another defenseman in the league or something. I don't know. Like, because like, there's nothing.
So
specific
not play
for him
in
to
the
work.
beauty league, pretty much.
Yes, pretty much. Because that's probably putting him in bad habits, right? You can get away with sending the puck up the middle in that league.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just, it sounds stupid, but that's a good example. I didn't even think of that. But like, there's nothing specific because he has a good shot. He could stick handle. He could skate. He always has the tools. So maybe he's got to find a tool bag this summer.
What about
Work
the
on finding
film
the tool
idea?
bag.
What about the film idea? Somebody mentioned it earlier. Well, I think
He's got to watch
watch
film,
film.
but I don't know who to watch film with. He's got to hire a coach in the offseason. I don't know how that works in the NHL. You can meet with your coaches in the offseason. I don't think you're allowed to. So he's got to find. That's why I said he's got to find another defenseman in the league. I don't think Adam Fox is it or anyone on the Rangers. He's got to find another defenseman like you always hear. Like you hear like a random player in Carolina. Oh, I'm skating with McKinnon this season. Like, fine, go skate with McKinnon then. Like, why can't like Miller go skate with one of these big or go skate with Hedman? Go live in
Victor
Sweden
Hedman
for the summer and skate with Hedman.
Call Victor Hedman and be like,
like,
"Can I follow you around for the summer?"
No,
please?
he's got to
real,
find
dude.
someone of. He's got to find someone of his ability. It's more like Cale Makar style. He could skate like that.
Whoever it is, like
I'm not saying he could be Cale Makar, but someone with that kind of ability.
You got to compete with someone better than you in the summer.
Get your head right. Get your head right. Just as a comparison, how many giveaways did Fox have?
Fox had, let's see. I just had it open. 76 in 74 games, so about one a game.
I guess Keandre had about that. It's a little bit more. But...
Now, I will say this. I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but typically a lot of the good players do have a lot of giveaways because they do theoretically have the puck more. The more you have the puck,
Schneider had 96 giveaways. I mean, the Rangers D had a lot of giveaways this year.
So. That's why I said on last episode, Rangers are in trouble on the defensive end. Never mind the forwards.
Yeah, that's another.
Yeah, but a lot of those giveaways are the fact that I don't want to sound like PJ with Shesterkin, but a lot of it has to do with the whole scheme of the team.
Yeah, the forwards not coming back and supporting the puck.
It has a lot to do with
that. Was the coach's corner. Remember that where they were hanging at the blue line and not giving them outlets?
The eye test tells me that Keandre doesn't know what he's doing, though.
But I mean, when you look at the giveaways, like Borgen had 53 and 51 games, which is about one a game. Fox had about one a game. Jones had 40 and 46 games. Schneider had 96, but he had in 80 games. Miller had 97 giveaways in only 74 games. Like that's a lot.
I don't want to harp on this, but I wonder like who's the best defenseman in giveaways. Like is one a game even a lot? I don't know if one a game.
I feel like one a game is normal. I feel like that's like average.
Right. Like you gotta.
It's like normal. You're gonna give it.
Yeah, I would say you're gonna give the puck away once a game. That seems low to me. Actually,
I'd be curious.
So Fox at one a game is probably pretty damn good.
Yeah, well, that's something that PJ maybe.
Yeah,
maybe PJ, you can look that up for next episode. I'm curious. All right, PJ, Alexis Lafreniere, 82 games, 17 goals, 28 assists, 45 points. He was minus 13 this season. Also noticed, he only had 119 hits too, which I was throwing out there. I feel like there's more to give in that category as well. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was harsh because I went into this season most excited to watch him play off of that playoff run he had in the whole last year. So I went D+, which I probably could have been worse. He had a great start to this season. I think we forget he had 16 points his first 19. So got that contract for a reason because he started so hot. I think they were worried he was going to kill it and give him even more. Because I remember we thought it was a little bit of a
we thought it was a steal of a contract.
Yeah, everyone did. So. Yeah, I mean, the lulls he had with what he had, that one where he was like 3 goals in 30 games stretch, like towards the end of this season, is just atrocious with the amount of minutes he's playing. But as far as working on I mean, this is pretty obvious back checking. Consistent effort, which can go for a lot of people, skating, and then, not letting the lack of production impact his game. I think sometimes a lot of these skill guys will, not be feeling it, but it affects the rest of their game instead of, Cooley's a one that doesn't. Like, he might not be scoring, but he's affecting the game in other ways.
Yeah, I mean, and Lafreniere was pretty honest with himself. He said he didn't really make a difference this year. He's disappointed in himself, and he's going to have a long summer where he can work on stuff to come back next year and have a big year. He struggled to be consistent, and he reiterated he's disappointed. So I think that he recognizes that was not a good year for him, and he needs to be better. So hopefully he can. All right, well, Mika Zibanejad for me, 82 games, 20 goals, 42 assists, 62 points, minus 22 this year, 52% on draws, and only 7 power play goals. Yeah, I'm going to give him an F. It seems pretty harsh. Seems pretty harsh because he was a point a game, I think, after JT Miller came. But I think that 4-15 stretch that this team had was it killed the season, and I blame a lot of that on Mika Zibanejad. He was not scoring goals. He had no even strength goals for a long period there. And he was on the ice for 2 to 4 goals every single game, missing assignment, out muscled in front of the net, to the point that he got moved from center to wing. And they had to go out and acquire a new number 1 center. So for me, I'm giving him an F. I do think that there is still that talented player there and he can improve. But what I think he really needs to work on this offseason is self-awareness. I think he needs to be a little more self-aware. I could have said hit the gym. That would have been an easy one. Clearly, he needs to hit the gym. He's got noodle arms, right? But I think self-awareness, he's got to be honestly assessing his game, and he's got to be real about it. This is not acceptable. He can't be thinking he's, being conceited and eating this money and just doing whatever he wants. For him to improve, he's got to be self-aware. I did include Artemi Panarin, coach, for you. I'm so strategic. I got to give myself a little bit of credit. All right, 80 games, 37 goals, 52 assists, 89 points for Panarin, minus 9. He did have 29 even strength goals, which I wanted to mention. I thought that was pretty good. And he led the team with Keandre Miller in 97 giveaways this season. So what's your grade on Panarin, and what does he got to do other than the off-ice stuff that's going on?
I'll give him a B. I still think he's got to commit to the team concept and play a better puck management game to get to the level that we need to get. I mean, it is great that he had 29 5-on-5 goals, but
even strength. I don't know if they're all 5-on-5.
Oh, true. Strength. Yeah, I just think he needs to work on his puck management game. That's what he needs to sit down and commit to.
The giveaway,
his skills there, his scoring's there, his playmaking's there. His skating's not great, but he's not going to improve on that. He just needs his mental game to get better, to push this team over the edge if they're going to keep him.
I need bald Panarin coming back for training camp.
Yeah, he's got to be a little more.
Got to have an edge.
All right, well, little Ed, giving you Chris Kreider to round out your 4. 68 games, 22 goals, 8 assists, 30 points, minus 5, 6 power play goals, and only 79 hits. So where you got Chris Kreider grade-wise? I guess you can include the injuries in your grade. And then what does he need to work on?
Well, that's the thing. That's the hard part is with the injuries, it's hard to give him a bad grade. But, I mean, at the same time, you got to be honest with your body. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to be honest that you're going to be hurting your teammates if that's the case. I mean, I think a lot to do with it is also these guys wanted to play in the 4 Nations. So probably that's why Trocheck played through an injury. Fox tried to maybe hurry back from his injury, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, long-winded. I got to give Kreider, I don't know, D-. C plus,
Damn.
D minus, something in that range. You know, like it's just
C plus to D minus. That's a pretty
B
wide
minus.
thing.
What?
B
Oh.
minus.
Did you say B minus?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said D minus and then C plus. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's hard. You know, it's a hard thing because, like I said before, you can't really expect too much out of him, but at the same time, you do. And in the off season, I think he's got to work on just getting healthy. You know, there's not much in his game where he's going to improve on. You know, just try to keep up his skating and stay lighter. And I mean, anyone could be a better leader and just improve on, look at themselves in the mirror. You know, just improve on the little things. And like I said, maybe that's just being honest with yourself at a certain point.
Yeah. All right,
What
PJ.
your limits are.
Yeah, PJ, Vinny Trocheck, 82 games, 26 goals, 33 assists, 59 points for Troche, 6 shorties, 7 game winners, 59.3% at the dot, 214 hits, but he did have 95 giveaways, which is close to the lead for the team. So where are you at with him?
Yeah, I might be. I know we finished the year strong and had decent counting stats. I went C minus. I thought, he was just as culpable as everyone else during that stretch. So I think he definitely could be better. And I know he's playing through that broken pinky, which didn't help things like towards the end of the stretch. But I don't know. I just figured he was more impactful. I think there was some defensive stuff that he wasn't great on this year as much as he is good shorthanded. I think he can work around. Like I saw a lot of times he was beat around the net defensively, like strength on the puck. And then same thing with like back checking. And then one thing I think he should work on, talked about this with Cooley, if Kreider is gone, he's probably in that spot in the first power play. So I think he needs to work on those deflections so he can replicate that production.
Oh, that's good. All right, well, we'll wrap this up with me. Adam Edstrom, he got hurt, only played 51 games. He had 5 goals, 4 assists, 9 points, -5. He did have 94 hits in those 51 games. I'm going to give him a B. I thought he was really good. And if he didn't get hurt, he might have had a chance to be in that A range. So I hate to dock him for the injury, but it's kind of hard to assess a season and give him more than a B. I think this is a kid who could be more than a fourth liner eventually. Another guy who I want to see him work on his offense a little. I think he's got the hard work and the speed and all that, the hitting. He's got all that good. Just keep that up and just work on your hands. And if he could be a 25-point guy, 30-point guy, then he could find himself on the third line at some point. And I think it's doable. We didn't touch on every player, but we did touch on a lot. So listeners, if there's somebody who we didn't cover and you want us to grade them, let us know somehow, either here in the chat, we'll note it, or on Instagram, and we'll give you the grade.
Getting
ahead,
back
Coach.
to the Chris Kreider 8 assists, that I got a quote from me, myself, and Irene. You got to have a mother effing aneurysm to get 8 assists in the NHL.
Panthers are up 3-1 on the Lightning, by the way.
Muted, Ed.
That's what I wanted to say too. What Coach had said last week, a lot has to do with Mika's performance, with why he didn't have a lot of assists. So
That's
I mean,
true.
you still gotta find a way to get some apples here, but like his first line center has got to find a way to get some tucks.
Apples and tucks.
Yep.
Sounds like a great bar. All right, let's move
real quick.
Oh yeah, speaking of milestone moment, Mika Zibanejad with his F grade scored his 250th career goal with the Rangers, tied for 8th all-time in Rangers history with Mark Messier. So congrats to Mika on that, and hopefully he adds to it next year. But yeah, quite a career he's had with the Rangers as far as production. But okay, anyway.
That Panthers goal, the third goal, was just the definition of playoff hockey.
By the way, that was sponsored by Old Country Tile. Yeah, dude, Sam Bennett scored, of course, to open the playoffs for the Panthers.
It's like the Panthers waited. I think I'm
watching so much money.
They're so good.
Sam Bennett's going to get paid. Anyway, all right. Let's finish this up with PJ. Give us the final standings on the schedule projections, and then And then I just wanted everyone to tell us who's in the Eastern Conference Finals and who's in Western and who's winning the Cup.
Yep.
So
Final
go ahead,
predictions from this, and we'll obviously with a full season we'll have better numbers on this. But me and Little Ed tied for first. Little Ed made a comeback. We
Yeah,
finished
nice.
12 each.
Okay.
Coach had 12 and 13, so right there. And Cousin Ed, he was going, bigger. He's going big swings at the end to try to come
Big
back.
game
And
hunting at the end.
Would I go 8 and 30 or something?
yeah.
He's like, I'm not even gonna say.
Panthers just scored again. Sheesh. Speaking of when we talk about our brackets, this is not looking good for me.
All right. Well, all right. Let's start with Coach. Coach, I don't know if you remember your bracket. If not, we can start with someone else. You could pull it up. But who you got in the Eastern Conference Finals and who you got in the Western Conference Finals, and then obviously who wins and yada yada yada.
I think I had Tampa. I had in the Western Conference Colorado and Vegas, and Toronto and Tampa, and I had Toronto and Colorado in the finals.
Well, you can't have Tampa and Toronto in the Eastern Finals.
Oh, I don't know then. You got to look at
It's either Capitals, Hurricanes, Devils, or
Hurricanes. I had Toronto Hurricanes.
Interesting. Okay. I had very similar to you. I had Colorado against Edmonton in the Western Finals with Colorado beating Edmonton. I had Toronto, Carolina in the conference finals in the East, and I have Toronto beating Colorado to win the Cup. That's my prediction. Yeah, I went off the board, I'm sure. All right, PJ, what was yours?
Yep. In the West, I had Colorado and LA. I just think LA defends so well, other than last night. They almost blew that. And then I have in the East, I have Tampa versus Carolina. And then in the final, I have Tampa over Colorado, the opposite of
Tampa?
2022.
Wow, Tampa.
And they're looking good tonight. Man, I love them down the stretch. They were humming. Vasilevsky was playing well, but this is not a good game one for me.
Yeah, Matthew Tkachuk just made Vasilevsky look silly, but I'm pretty spot on with you, I think. I have Colorado, Vegas in the West, and Tampa and Carolina in the East, and I have Tampa beating Colorado in the final.
Wow. There we go. Right
So
on.
nobody has faith in Washington or New Jersey or
I have
Florida.
Washington beating Montreal,
Florida
and losing to Carolina.
Florida is back-to-back Eastern Conference champions, by the way, and we're just knocking them out in the first round. I have Florida over Tampa. I might be the only one here it does. But I took Toronto over Florida in round 2, which I think I'll end up regretting.
Florida has to tucker out at some point, right? I mean, it's
I don't
hard.
think so.
This game looks
3 Cup finals is almost
Tucker.
impossible. The only reason Tampa did it is because they had 2 shortened years.
I mean, I got them in 7. I think they beat Tampa in 7, but I just can't pick against a team that's been back-to-back Eastern Conference champions. Like, it's the same team. It's tough. I don't know. I get it. Tampa's really good. It's shame.
I'm rooting for Toronto.
Me
They're
too,
winning
Coach.
again tonight, 2-1 in the third.
I'm rooting for Toronto, and a lot of people are going to say why. Who knows? A lot of people are going to say why, but here's why. They are an original 6 team that has not won the Cup in like 60-something years, and I understand that. And they have real fans, even though some of them are probably jerks like Rangers fans, but they deserve to see their team win the freaking Stanley Cup. So I'm rooting for those fans to get that, because that's why I'm rooting, Coach. I don't know about you, but
yeah,
I feel like they deserve
Toronto.
it.
I like Toronto. I've always liked them.
Austin Matthews, one of my favorite players.
All right, boys, this is a long one.
I like
I
Willie.
was going to say anyone but the Devils, Washington, and Carolina for me.
Seriously. All right. Well, this is a long one.
I'm not going to say I'm not rooting for Carolina if they could win it, because I like Brindamore as a coach. I like the whole,
No, thanks. I'll pass on Carolina winning, but mostly New Jersey. If anyone wins after, as long as New Jersey's out, I really don't care that much.
Yeah.
Carolina or Washington.
There's about
New Jersey or
0%
Washington.
I mean, even if Washington wins, like, it's fine. I already saw them win. They're like an ancillary rival. It's not like a big deal. All right. This was a long episode, but thank you for sticking by. We covered a lot. We got a couple other fun things coming up. Obviously, we're going to do our awards we do every year. So we'll do that in the coming weeks. If not next week, we'll let you know on Instagram. Yeah, thanks for listening, and thank you to our sponsors for again making the season possible. Enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs. Let us know who you got in your brackets. We'll compare. I don't know. Toronto winning the cup, I'm probably not going to win, so we'll see who actually does win. And yeah, boys, final thoughts.
Sam Rosen jersey plaque to the
Wait,
winner.
one last one.
Nice touch, BJ. On that note, boys, good episode. Love you guys.
Love you guys.
See ya.
Let's go Rangers.